Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
U.S. intelligence officials said that there are terrorist threats targeting New York City, and they are very concerned over threats targeting domestic and foreign U.S. interests. According to New York police officials, they have raised the threat level, but they say they do not have information about any specific threat to the city. Meanwhile, White House spokesman Scott McClellan said that the administration is concerned over the threat of attacks. For this reason, their Department of Homeland Security has been sending several bulletins over the past few weeks to Homeland Security officials and law enforcement personnel, urging all to continue to be on a heightened state of alert. Algerian President Abdulaziz Bouteflika said that there isn't enough time to resolve crucial differences between Algeria and Morocco during the Maghreb Union meetings, adding that it considers the Moroccan King Mohammed VI capable of resolving these differences without any foreign intervention. Bouteflika's statements were made during a short visit to Paris, where he met with his counterpart, Jacques Chirac, celebrating the end of the Algeria year in France. Meanwhile, Bouteflika also attended cultural events and gave a speech at the Sorbonne University to mark the close of Algeria year in France. Today, Libya strongly denied Mauritania's accusations of supporting and financing a recent coup attempt in Mauritania and aiding former Mauritanian President Mohamed Kouna Ould Haydala. During a press conference in Tripoli, an official of the Libyan Foreign Ministry said that it did not support the coup, adding that they do not meddle in Mauritania's internal affairs. According to the spokesman, Mauritanian officials should solve its internal problems, stop handing out accusations for a price, and stop implicating Libya in the issue. Head of the American Civil Administration in Iraq, Paul Bremer, admitted that on December 6th, he survived an assassination attempt. It occurred during the U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld's visit to Baghdad. Meanwhile, a woman was killed and 8 people were wounded during an explosion at the office of the Supreme Council for the Islamic Revolution in Iraq. Furthermore, an oil tanker accompanied by a U.S. patrol unit was attacked west of Baghdad. Early this month, the U.S. civil administrator in Iraq, Paul Bremer, was the target of an assassination attempt. It occurred on the arrival date of the U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld to Baghdad. Due to the persistence of journalists and information that was leaked, Paul Bremer admitted 2 weeks later to the assassination attempt, adding that no one was injured.
As you can see, they did not succeed.
Meanwhile, American television stations reported that Bremer's armored vehicle collided into an explosive device while under light fire when he was returning from the Baghdad airport. The former Iraqi president Saddam Hussein is currently under arrest. However, the security situation remains the same on the ground. This morning, in Abu Ghraib, west of Baghdad, an explosive device detonated when an oil tanker drove over it. It was being escorted by a U.S. military unit.
The explosion happened at 10 to 8. 2 Americans were killed and 1 person was injured.
In the Jihad neighborhood of the Iraqi capital, the office of the Supreme Council for the Islamic Revolution in Iraq was leveled to the ground due to an explosion. The council is the main political party representing Shiite Muslims in Iraq. About 10 people were killed or wounded.
We heard the sound of an airplane, and then it happened. A minute later, 2 adults and 2 children fell victim.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Army announced that their soldiers killed 2 people and arrested 86 others during a raid and search campaign in Samarra, north of Baghdad. A U.S. officer stated that the soldiers found weapons in the houses they searched. In addition, the U.S. forces arrested 5 people from the Amal neighborhood, southeast of Baghdad, during another campaign looking for groups attacking the coalition forces in Iraq. In the Iraqi capital of Baghdad, hundreds of Iraqi Shiites marched in a demonstration following Friday prayers, demanding that the ousted president Saddam Hussein be immediately prosecuted in Iraq, giving him the death sentence. However, Iraqi council member Adnan al-Patashi reiterated his rejection to the death sentence, adding that ultimately the court will decide on the fate of the ousted president. At a time when it has not been determined where, when, and how Saddam Hussein's trial will be, Iraqis angry with the previous regime have already given their verdict. Hundreds of Iraqi Shiites took to the streets of Baghdad, demanding that former President Saddam Hussein be tried in an Iraqi court and sentenced to death. A group of people in the Shula neighborhood held a demonstration immediately after Friday prayers, carrying pictures of Shiite religious leaders and banners denouncing the former Iraqi president, calling him a criminal, and demanding that he be brought to justice and executed.
Our main demand is that Saddam is publicly brought to justice in Iraq. We are asking to give him the death sentence because he executed more than 2 million Iraqis. Therefore, it is logical for him to be executed in front of the Iraqi people.
The Iraqi public has sentenced the former Iraqi president to death. However, some Iraqi council members do not support the death penalty, including Adnan al-Batashi.
I personally oppose the death sentence, but this is my personal opinion. But of course, it is up to the court.
Al-Batashi commented on his meeting with Saddam Hussein following his arrest, saying that he was not rude, rather, he was very respectful. Al-Batashi said, "I did not try to humiliate him, but asked him questions politely, and he responded in the same fashion. When I saw him, he seemed to be quite alert. He was aware of what he was saying. Of course, he tried to justify everything that he did."
In a major policy speech, Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon issued an ultimatum to Palestinians, saying Israel would enforce a separation, denying them land they want if current peace efforts fails within a month. Sharon's speech drew Palestinian, Israeli and international reservations. Many stressed that unilateral moves would not help solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
It was billed as Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon's most important diplomatic speech of the year. But Sharon's speech in Herzliya Thursday gave nothing new and was predictably met with scornful reactions from the Palestinians. Sharon gave the Palestinians a warning that Israel would disengage from Palestinian territories in the next few months if a negotiated settlement could not be reached.
If within several months the Palestinians continue to not fulfill their roadmap obligations, then Israel will initiate a unilateral security move, one of separation from the Palestinians.
Sharon also pledged to keep Israel's so-called commitments to the roadmap by removing settlers' outposts, freezing current settlements, and relocating Israeli troops to sketch a security line as efficient as possible. The United States and Russia, who along with the European Union and the United Nations sponsored their Middle East roadmap plan, warned Israel against unilateral moves, saying such moves cannot lead to positive results in the regulation of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
The United States believes that a settlement must be negotiated, and we would oppose any effort, any Israeli effort to impose a settlement.
But revealing Washington's double face, McLennan said U.S. officials are pleased with Israeli unilateral steps such as removing unauthorized outposts and isolated settlements that can help the roadmap move forward. A senior Israeli official who declined to be identified expressed Israel's satisfaction with the reactions of the U.S. administration. Washington also pressed for a prompt meeting between Sharon and Palestinian Prime Minister Ahmed Correa. The Palestinian premier expressed his willingness for talks, but showed immediate disappointment by Sharon's threats, which he said does not work with the roadmap.
If he wants, I think we can do it in a few months. But with the language of threatening, I don't think that this will be able to work. What he said that he will build a new security line, new redeployment, that he will continue building and constructing the separation wall, which doesn't work with his commitments to the roadmap.
Palestinians fear they could end up trapped within shrunken, unviable borders if Sharon enforces unilateral steps that effectively annex big chunks of occupied territory. But though Sharon's words were officially seen as leaving no room for maneuvering, resistance remains a vital means to restore rights.
It's like someone who's tying my hands, my legs, and throwing me to the sea. If I drown, I'm not a good partner. If I don't swim, I can't be a partner.
The Israeli Prime Minister is expecting the Palestinian people to sit on the floor and wave a white flag, but this is not the way to treat people who you claim you are willing to give a state of their own.
Sharon also came under fire from Israeli settlers after warning that settlements would be evacuated under the terms of the program of unilateral engagements.
We shall fight these proposals. We shall oppose Sharon. We think it's a very dangerous way of thinking. But we shall stay in the government until we will see some real steps taken on ground.
Despite this barrage of criticism, Israel is forging ahead with the construction of the West Bank separation wall. Sharon's unilateral speech Thursday dwindled every international opposition, as Israel now says the wall will be completed, come what may, by the end of 2005.
Iran signed up to surprise UN inspections of its nuclear sites in a move hailed as a watershed for Tehran. Countries worldwide welcomed the move, while Washington said the signing of the additional protocol was just the first step. More in this report. IAEA Director General Mohammad al-Baradei said Iran has turned a new page after Iranian Ambassador Ali Akbar Salehi signed an additional protocol to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty at a ceremony at the Vienna headquarters of the UN nuclear watchdog. The key accord means Iran will open its nuclear facilities to unfettered and unannounced UN inspections. This is a Western demand amid US accusations that Tehran might be concealing an atomic weapons program.
I was assured that Iran, until the protocol is ratified, will act as if the protocol is enforced, which is positive. I hope that with the protocol enforced, we should be able to move forward. We would like to be able, as soon as we can, to provide assurances to the international community that Iran program is exclusively for peaceful purpose. As I've said before, we still have a good deal of work to perform, but with Iran full cooperation, full transparency, I would hope that this will be done without any delay.
The Iranian ambassador to the International Atomic Energy Agency said he hoped after the landmark event that Iran will not be exposed anymore to unfair and politically motivated accusations. Iran insists its nuclear program is peaceful and geared only towards producing electricity.
By signing the additional protocol, my country has taken a great and an important step towards revealing its attitude of transparency and a full commitment to international confidence building. This essential move shall certainly be recorded in the memory and history of the agency as the turning point in the enhancement and strengthening of the integrated safeguards regime. I ardently hope that the new stage is set and that my country shall no more be subject to unfair and politically motivated accusations and allegations.
With this signature, Tehran has secured its right to generate nuclear energy, and the IAEA will not violate national sensibilities. Al-Baradei on Thursday hinted that Iran could be rewarded with the lifting of a long-standing ban on importing nuclear equipment. The United States said the signing of the additional protocol was just a first step, while EU Foreign Policy Envoy Javier Solana welcomed the accord as an important step in building international confidence about the peaceful nature of Iran's nuclear program. Solana will visit Tehran in the beginning of next year in a trip aimed at boosting economic and political cooperation. On November 18, Washington failed to convince EU and other countries in the IAEA Board of Governors to present its concerns over Iran's nuclear program to the UN Security Council, which could impose sanctions. The international community preferred a smoother dealing with Iran, an approach that proved fruitful. The administration of US President George W. Bush suffered a couple of setbacks in Guantanamo Detainee Court battles after a US federal appeals court ruled for the first time that prisoners held at the US military base in Guantanamo should have access to lawyers and the American court system, and that Bush does not have the power to detain an American citizen seized on US soil as an enemy combatant.
U.S. courts dealt a double blow to U.S. President George W. Bush's prosecution of the so-called war on terror, with rulings that his administration was abusing the rights of detainees. One court said inmates at the U.S. detention camp in Guantanamo Bay in Cuba should be allowed access to lawyers and the court system. The first decision by the U.S. Second Circuit Court of Appeals concerned Jose Padilla, a U.S. citizen detained on U.S. soil and held incommunicado in a Navy prison for the past 18 months. The court ruled 2-1 that the government did not have the right to treat him as an enemy combatant and ordered him transferred to civilian custody within 30 days or released.
Congress has stated that nobody can be detained without a charge. My client does not have a charge pending. There's been a lot of allegations, but they have refused to charge my client with a crime. Yet they have insisted that the military has the right to detain him. And the Second Circuit has said, no, you do not. That's not what the law says.
The White House said the ruling was inconsistent with Bush's constitutional authority as well as with other court rulings.
The president's most solemn obligation is protecting the American people. We believe the Second Circuit ruling is troubling and flawed. The president has directed the Justice Department to seek a stay and further judicial review. This is a case in which an individual was involved with terrorist organization activity and was actively engaged in an effort to do harm to the American people.
The former Chicago group member who converted to Islam was arrested in May 2002 in Chicago's O'Hare Airport as he returned from Pakistan. Within days, he was moved to a naval prison in Charleston, South Carolina. Padilla is accused of plotting to detonate a dirty bomb which uses conventional explosives to disperse radioactive materials. Hours later in San Francisco, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals made a 2-1 decision, harshly critical of the detention of the 660 prisoners at Guantanamo without charge or the protection of the Geneva Convention. Most were captured in Afghanistan when the United States toppled the Taliban regime. Prior to Thursday's decision, U.S. authorities had taken a small step by naming a military defense counsel for one of 6 detainees at Guantanamo who has been singled out by Bush for possible trial by a military commission.
Iraqis are insisting on trying Saddam Hussein in his own country and with their own judges. As several countries prepare their complaints against the former Iraqi president, U.S. forces captured on December the 13th. The Iraqi spokesman for the U.S.-appointed Transitional Council, Hamid al-Kifai, said on Friday all the governing council members agree that Saddam must be tried in Iraq by Iraqi judges. Kifai also said that Saddam was still undergoing questioning by the Americans, who would subsequently hand him over to Iraqi authorities. But the ousted president's trial should not take place until after the new government assumes power in Iraq at the end of June 2004, Iraqi officials added. On the other hand, UN human rights groups said on Friday that it hoped the trial of captured former Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein would meet international standards. Meanwhile, Iran is preparing its own legal case against the ousted Iraqi leader for his use of chemical weapons in his 8-year war against Iran. New York police said Friday they had no credible intelligence of a terrorist threat to New York. This came as the White House announced that the U.S. government urged security officials several times in recent weeks to be on a heightened state of alert due to a concerning volume of threat reports. And as Al-Qaeda's second-in-command Ayman al-Zawahri said in an audio tape aired on an Arab TV station on Friday, that the U.S. had suffered defeat in Afghanistan. A Turkish state security court on Friday charged a key suspect in last month's bombing in Istanbul with attempting to overthrow the constitutional order by force, an offense punishable by life imprisonment, Anatolia News Agency reported. Turkish police said that an international terrorist organization had given training and cash to members of the Turkish group thought to be behind 4 devastating bomb blasts in Istanbul last month. The police statement said a key member of a radical Turkish group, Adnan Ersaz, was detained on December the 15th after returning to Turkey from Iran and admitted the link with the international organization while being questioned. It did not name the international organization, however. Ersaz, meanwhile, denied any responsibility for the blasts, but admitted to knowing some of the suicide bombers. Police have arrested about 30 people and questioned more than 150 in connection with the 4 bombings of Jewish and British targets, in which 61 people were killed and hundreds wounded. A delegate from Sudan People's Liberation Army rebels said on Friday negotiations on ending the country's civil war are stuck on the key issue of sharing oil revenues, but that the gap between the two sides is narrowing. Nearly 2 years of talks between the government and the southern-based SPLA on ending the 20-year conflict have produced deals on some issues, but sharing wealth is one of 3 outstanding topics. Government officials would not give details about the negotiations. Sources at the talks said mediators had suggested giving the parties 2 more days to come up with a wealth-sharing deal. But even if they sign that, it would be some way off the full peace deal promised by the end of December. Pakistan's offer to set aside demands for a UN-mandated referendum on the future of Kashmir has spurred quiet hopes for peace in the region, as well as angry charges of betrayal. On both sides of the divided Himalayan region, the trigger for 2 of 3 wars between nuclear-armed rivals Pakistan and India, ordinary people were desperate for peace. In the heart of Kashmir, in the ancient Indian-controlled city of Srinagar, people urged India to respond positively to Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf's apparent concession. But many Kashmiris on the Pakistani side of the region voiced anger at what they saw as a betrayal by Musharraf of their right under the referendum to decide their own fate. India has not yet responded to Musharraf's offer to set aside Pakistan's 50-year-old demand to implement UN resolutions calling for both sides to withdraw troops and for Kashmiris to decide in a vote on whether to be part of India or Pakistan. India blames the violence in Kashmir on fighters based in Pakistan. Pakistan denies backing the fighters except for moral support and accuses India in turn of human rights violations.
Saturday marks the martyrdom anniversary of Imam Jafar Sadiq, the 6th Shiite Imam. The staff here at JNN English News Desk would like to extend their condolences to all Muslims, Shiites in particular, on this tragic occasion. On the last day of a 4-day visit to Qazvin Friday, leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, told provincial officials and select members of the public Qazvin province has a perfect set of workforce, economic, agricultural, historical, cultural, and artistic potentials, urging officials to do what it takes to push ahead with efforts to secure progress. Recalling the projected 8% annual growth during the course of the fourth development plan, the leader said strong infrastructure, energetic youths, along with the progressive movement, which is on the march across the nation, make realization of the 8% growth a possibility, provided that everyone makes efforts and executive bodies turn up the heat on corruption to accelerate progress. Ayatollah Khamenei said emergence of an independent Iran following the victory of the Islamic Revolution lies at the center of the hostility the United States and other coercive powers hold against Tehran, adding, hegemonic powers know that they are hiding behind democracy, human rights, and the rights of women to put pressure on Iran because the Islamic establishment cut their hands off Iranian resources and stood up to their acquisitiveness. Chairman of the Arbitrative Expediency Council, Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani, says, on the heels of Iran's accession to the NPT's additional protocol, the onus is now on the West and international institutions to make good on their promises to Tehran. The top cleric made the appeal as he held this week's Friday prayers on Tehran's university campus, adding, of course, Iran's accession to the Safeguard Agreement will be fully materialized once it undergoes the necessary legal procedures in the country. The former Iranian president then refreshed the call for massive popular turnout at the upcoming parliamentary polls, all to scupper rising efforts by the Western propaganda machine to dismay the Iranian nation from active participation in the voting process. Shifting to the question of Saddam Hussein's bringing to justice, Mr. Rafsanjani said the White House administrators not only lack the competence to prosecute the former Iraqi dictator, but also deserve to stand trial as Saddam's main accomplices in his brutal acts. Further, detailing on the issue, Tehran's interim Friday prayer leader added the captured Iraqi dictator committed numerous brutalities, namely massacre of the Iraqi Shiites, chemical gassing of the Iraqi eastern town of Halabja, all with the contributions from the U.S. and Britain. Hence, as he went on to say, Washington, due to its numerous oppressive measures against the Muslims in the Middle East region, devoids the capacity to take any decision on the fate of the Iraqi nation. Adi Akbar Vedayati, an international advisor to the leader of the Islamic Revolution, says Tehran's accession to the additional protocol on Thursday offset accusations by Western powers that Iran seeks to develop nuclear weapons. Vedayati told the Dubai-based Al Arabiya TV network on Friday Tehran's nuclear program is geared for peaceful purposes and that signature of the additional protocol to the NPT is further proof that international organizations are overseeing Iran's nuclear program. Iran is the 181st country to sign the Safeguard document, which allows the snap inspections of nuclear facilities. No restrictions are laid on foreign investment in Iran's industrial sector, and that foreign and domestic private investors will be given similar opportunities to embark on production activities across the nation. Director General of the Office for Foreign Investment, Mr. Mortazavi, said on Friday, foreign investment could be feasible on a contractual basis, even if direct investment is subject to legal limitations. Meanwhile, in a related development, the Iranian Ministry of Mines and Industries has opened a website on the internet at www.min.gov.ir to provide contenders with detailed information on related laws, methods, and opportunities, both in English and Persian languages.
Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin.